problems and complain all day. I'm not really big on complaining. I'm big on solving problems and finding ways to break out of processes that are holding you back. Stop thinking that the white man controls your whole life. He doesn't control your whole life. You control your life. And I refuse to believe anything other than that, because it doesn't do you any good to believe that you can't control your destiny. So anyway, so this week in London, some of you asked me about London. In London, we did a Black Economic Empowerment Festival. Everybody in London, I want to say thank you for coming out. It was totally awesome. We had a great time. Black London is you got to go to London and meet the Black people in London. That's all I got to say. They were just really amazing people. You see pictures online. If you use the hashtag Dr. Boyce London, you can see a lot of the pictures and the video and stuff like that. And the place was totally packed house, people screaming, cheering, yelling. The kids were there. They brought their kids. And I love that, because you got to bring your kids to these classes. When you're learning about economics, you teach your children so that your family can build its empire. You should have a family empire. The bank ain't gonna loan you money, so you need to have a family bank. A family bank, all that is, I can show you how to build a family bank. In fact, there's in my store, I can't remember where it's at. I think it's I can't remember what it's called. I think it's called the Dr. Boyce Watkins Store.com. In the store, there's actually a lecture that I put together on how to build your own family bank. It might cost, I think, $20 or something like that, but it's a layout, it's a blueprint, it's a model that you can apply, that I applied to build our family bank. Our family has a bank, which is basically a collection of assets that allows us to make moves. You see, Cardi B, the rapper, talks about, I don't dance now, I make money move. Well, I don't know what kind of money moves she's making, but if she ain't got no financial literacy, she ain't making money moves. A white man is making her move. Somebody else is controlling her money or controlling her financial outcomes, as opposed to her controlling them themselves. And I'm not saying she's not. I don't know that lady at all. But what I'm saying is that if you really talk about making money moves kind of means that you understand capital. And if you understand capital, then you understand how to take that capital, how to invest it, how to plant those seeds. It's not complicated. It's just like planting flowers in your garden. If you plant, seeds in your garden, those seeds will grow into, flowers and trees and vegetation, and then you'll be eating good because you've grown your own stuff. So ultimately, when you think about money, one thing I want you to get out of your head right now is this idea that money is something that's supposed to be spent. The majority of your money is not supposed to be spent. The reason one area where we lose tremendously as a community is with professional athletes who make $100 million over the course of their career, and they spend it all because nobody ever taught them that money isn't something you're supposed to spend. When you get that kind of money, especially when you have large amounts of money, that's supposed to be capital. Capital is something that's supposed to be grown. If you grow it the right way, what happens is your money doubles, triples, and quadruples. So if you are the athlete making, investing, say, $2-3 million a year, eventually you're making $20 million money moves and $30 million money moves because you've been planting your seeds throughout the years and it's grown into something bigger. That's where these billion-dollar companies come from. Is somebody started off making tiny moves, $100 moves, then they started making $1,000 moves, then they started making $10,000 moves. Now, let me jump into the conversation about Bitcoin. In case somebody's asking about this shirt I got on, this is actually Dame Dash's brand. Dame and I are friends, and his brand is called CEO. And I just had the shirt on, and I respect the brother. I rep his shirts every now and then, stuff like that. Also, Willie D from the Ghetto Boys. He and I are going to work together. We actually decided, we were talking, and we realized that there should be a curriculum on manhood. So we're actually going to put together a sort of a manhood curriculum, manhood agenda to teach your sons and your brothers and yourselves, some of you, just what just give you some ideas on manhood. We're not telling anybody what to do, but one reason that Willie and I are friends is because I respect him as a man and he respects me as a man. The other person, just so you guys know what's on the horizon, I also love, every now and then, I guess I just happen to know a lot of rappers. So I had a conversation with David Banner the other day, and you'll see David coming on the channel a lot more. I'm always good with partnerships, and I guess partnerships with black men are natural because I'm a black man, but there's also some strong black women. In London, we made some good partnerships. There's a couple that runs something called blackhistorystudies.com, and they teach really good black history. And so we're partnering with them. And we're actually going to get an office in London. We're going to buy a building in London, and also in Philadelphia, Kenny Gamble and his crew. We partner with them for ibuyblack.org. We partnered with Dr. Kevin Cosby down at Simmons College, which is going to house an institute in my name. So the reason I'm sharing all that with you is because one of the things I want you to really understand, these are things I'm learning as a businessman as time goes on, is that your strength really comes through productive partnerships. You got to be picky. Partnerships are a lot like relationships, who you date. You don't want to date somebody who's not going to value you as a person, who's not going to value what you bring to the table, who's going to bring chaos to the table, who's going to ruin what you have. You partner with people who can bring something to the table and who are as serious as you. You look for people that are equally yoked. So a lot of times in our business partnerships, we worked with people who first of all, you got to agree with us that blackness is top priority. If you tell us that the gay agenda is your top priority, well, that's not really for me. I have nothing against the gay community, but the gay agenda is not my top agenda. If you tell me that, something, immigration is your top agenda item, I can't vibe with that either, because that's just not my number one agenda item. I believe that Black people, we divide ourselves a lot based on little things that don't matter. Like, you're a Christian and I'm a Muslim, or I'm poor and you're rich, or I'm from this country and you're from that country. And what I'm figuring out from traveling to different countries, that's why I've been going to different countries. I've been trying to learn. I'm growing. The first step in being a good teacher is to know how to be a good student. So I'm always a student. I'm always a student of life. And so all this traveling I'm doing is really teaching me about focusing on cutting down the borders and the barriers that keep Black people apart. All the things that, a lot of times, first of all, for a lot of guys, it's just ego. I have a hard time really figuring out how to partner with people who have extremely high egos. If you really think you're the center of the universe, then you obviously you don't belong in any of this, because none of us is the center. None of us is the Superman. None of us is the natural king or queen or anything. We just all play our position, and so ego, I think, it gets in the way a lot. But there's a lot of good people that are doing really good stuff. And the key thing is that when you're working together, what you're doing is you're giving yourself what I call economic fortification. Economic fortification is a protective mechanism that ensures that your likelihood of failure is much, much lower, because you've got other people you can lean on and work with, people that can help bail you out, people that you can borrow money from, people that you can get customers from, people that you can share information with. So right now in Philadelphia and in Louisville and in London and in other cities, we want to have spaces that are like, spaces where people can congregate and network and share information, because when they do that, you find that you just walk away with better ideas. When all the Black people in London came together for this event, the best thing I was happy to be able to do for the city of Black London, or for Black London, is bring a lot of people together who might not have come together otherwise. A lot of them came together because they knew of me and stuff like that, and they knew of the panelists, the great panelists that we had. But when they got there and they started talking to each other, they started finding out that other people were doing the same thing they were doing, and they didn't feel alone. They didn't feel alone. And that's the key. When you have other people you're networked with who think like you do, you don't feel alone. And that increases your courage. It makes you less afraid. Like, oh my God, what's going to happen if things don't work out? Am I going to have to go work for the white man again? No, you really don't have to do that if we stick together. If we stick together, we're safe. If we separate, we're not safe. All right. So anyway, let me jump in and start talking a little bit about some things I've been seeing in the media. Now, I don't know if you guys have looked into Bitcoin. A lot of you have asked about Bitcoin. I'm a consistent investor in Bitcoin, very consistent investor. In the Black Stock Market Program, we have several modules on how to invest in Bitcoin. In the Black Business School, we're actually going to have a cryptocurrency class, and it's all it's going to focus on is, cryptocurrency, the blockchain, the technology, all of that. But if you just want to understand how to get invested in Bitcoin, if you log in at theblackstockmarketprogram.com, there's a whole instruction layout on how to invest in Bitcoin, among other things. I mean, there's literally over 100 hours of content in there, but that's one thing that's in there. So you go to theblackstockmarketprogram.com, you get the first month free, and everything in there that you need to know about investing in Bitcoin is there, plus my analysis of Bitcoin as I've been learning about this cryptocurrency. I've been reading a book about it. I've been studying it. I've been, watching stuff and reading stuff and looking at the background and trying to understand the technology, because I'm kind of a computer geek myself. So I was really curious about just this whole blockchain and Bitcoin mining and how all it works. So anyway, here's what's been happening with Bitcoin. Here's what's been going on with Bitcoin. First of all, Bitcoin has been literally the best investment I've made this year. And my God, in the last couple of years, I've had some really good investments. We've had some things we've invested in that have had super high returns, 100%, returns, triple, double the money, stuff like that. Nothing that compares to Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin has been sick. Bitcoin's rise has been, let me see if I can find a chart I can show you guys. Let me see here. Yeah, Bitcoin's rise in the last week, I think, has been hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I think I'm trying to think, what did it? Yeah, anyway, let me see if I can find it on my Coinbase, because I'm trying to remember. Every day I check Bitcoin because I have this app. This app is called Coinbase, and on this app, that's where I buy my Bitcoin. And every day I check it to see if it went up, and it never ceases to amaze me. Right now, it's been on an insane run. It's gone up about 500%. Yeah, this week alone, it's gone up over $1,000 in value. So one Bitcoin right now is worth about $5,700 approximately. A week ago, it was less than $5,000. But here's what's crazy. If you go back a year ago, Bitcoin was under $1,000, right? Under 1,000. Now, a lot of people think that you have to have $5,000 to buy Bitcoin. That's not true. On the Coinbase app, you can buy Bitcoin for as little as $20, or $10 even, I bet. So, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jagaban. He says that it's now $5,675.06. Yeah, and the interesting about the Coinbase app is that unlike publicly traded stocks where you can only get price updates during the week, you can actually get Bitcoin price updates every single day, including weekends. And so ultimately, it's been kind of insane. And I personally think that the rise in Bitcoin has been driven by speculation, by almost like a gold rush. People, they're not really looking to make money from their savings accounts anymore because their savings accounts don't pay very much, right? So everybody's looking for a good investment. Well, Bitcoin is coming off as a good investment. Now, what you got to be cautious about, though, this is why don't put your rent money in Bitcoin. Don't put your rent money in Bitcoin, because there are a lot of factors that can cause Bitcoin to plummet. Bitcoin is an it is an investment, in my opinion, for someone who believes that there is some reasonable probability that it's going to become a heavily utilized currency in the future. So if you think that Bitcoin is going to become mainstream, then you're going what they call going long on Bitcoin. You're being bullish on Bitcoin. And so so if you think that there's a chance that it's going to happen, then you may invest in Bitcoin just because you want to make sure that you're there in case it does pop off. There are people that predict that Bitcoin could go as high as $100,000 per coin, right? And in fact, when it hit 1,000, people thought, oh my God, it's too high. It'll never go higher than that. And then they started selling, and those people regret the fact that they sold, right? But then again, though, I have a friend who bought Bitcoin when it was like 25 cents. And he made about $10 million. He was a regular dude, just working a regular job, but he was thinking like an investor. He wasn't trying to make money with labor for the rest of his life. You're not supposed to make money by working for the rest of your life. You're supposed to use the money you make from working, and that should be a stepping stone for you to actually have capital so you can make money moves. So that you can really so you can say to yourself, I need to make more money, and you're not moving your ass, you're moving your assets. So don't think that making money means just moving your ass. You got to move your assets, So what I would say is that, when I think about my friend who made all that money from Bitcoin, here you had a regular dude who had a regular job, who went and saw Bitcoin. He was engaging in the first step of wealth building, which is obtaining financial knowledge. He was a guy sitting here just like you all, or some of you, and he was listening and learning and trying to decide, what he wanted to do with his life and where the opportunities might be. He could have been, out clubbing, watching ESPN, watching, reality TV every day, chilling with his boys or whatever, but he didn't. He spent some time, trying to learn how to invest, right? So that he could actually graduate to the higher echelons of money. So what he did was he took a little bit of extra money, a few $100. I think it was less than 1,000. Now, again, a lot of people will waste, $800-900 on all kinds of stuff. He didn't do that. He took that money and he put it into an investment. He didn't know if Bitcoin was going to be worth more than 25 cents, but he did it anyway. And he bought a lot of Bitcoin, because you can buy a lot of Bitcoin at 25 cents a pop if you spend it $700-800, right? And Bitcoin got up. I don't know what point he sold most of his shares, but I think he sold most of his shares when Bitcoin was a couple $1,000s. So he literally made, $8 to $10 million, and now he doesn't have to work. He travels. All he does is travel the world, and it was largely because when he got his income from his job, he didn't see that as money that he was supposed to spend. He saw that as money he was supposed to invest. So when people talk about, Black people having spending power, you need to stop being impressed with that. Stop getting excited when somebody brags about Black spending power. Like, I'm sure if you go to the Essence Music Fest or somewhere else, they're going to talk about Black spending power. Well, don't clap anymore when they talk about, they say Black people now have over 1.3 trillion in spending power. So what? So what? Spending power means nothing. Spending power only means something if you convert it to investing power. It's like having a lot of potential. Having potential only means something if you use it for something productive. But if you waste the potential, then it means nothing. And so ultimately, when they talk about Black spending power, what really a magazine like Essence is kind of doing is they might be talking about Black spending power to get white companies to sell Black people more products that they don't actually need. Black people don't need more stuff. Black people need more ownership. We need to own things that are going to go up in value so that you can make money on the growth in those assets. And Jay-Z talked about that in his album 444, where he talked about, a property he could have bought. He's, instead of buying clothes and shoes and cars, he said, I could have bought that property. And back then the property was worth $2 million. Now it's worth $25 million. So ultimately, by him, spending money and enjoying his money and consuming his money instead of investing his money, he gave away. He might have spent, 3-4 million, but he really gave away about 22 or 23 million in potential profit, as well as the chance to give something to his family. So with Bitcoin, if you want to get started, I would recommend getting the app called Coinbase. I'm not, scratch that. I'm not recommending the app. I'll say that's what I use. It makes it very easy to buy Bitcoin. And Bitcoin, you don't have to spend a lot of money. You link it to your bank account and you just start buying. Do not ever for 1 second think that Bitcoin is a surefire investment. Bitcoin is an interesting investment. Put it this way, Warren Buffett, I would suspect, probably doesn't like Bitcoin very much as an investment because he probably sees Bitcoin as overly speculative, as almost potentially a fad. But just because it's a fad, does that mean that it's a bad place to put your money? No. I mean, wouldn't you have liked to have been the first person to invest in red bottom shoes? Those little shoes in Europe with the red bottoms that everybody wants to buy for $1,000, even though they're probably worth less than 50, right? Well, so red bottoms would have been a good investment, right? All fashion is basically, the manipulation of someone's mind to get them to believe that something has more financial value than it actually does. Who says that a pair of jeans with a rip in the middle should cost $300? Somebody convinces people that that's the case, and that's when they go and they spend $300 on a pair of ripped jeans that don't cost anything to make. So Bitcoin might be speculative. It could be a fad. There's not a lot of intrinsic fundamental value in the Bitcoin. Bitcoin isn't really used a lot, in regular transactions, although that's growing and that's changing. Most companies seem to be most intrigued with the blockchain technology that underlies Bitcoin. That's what's going to be in play. That's what's really going to be utilized. Now, whether or not Bitcoin is utilized is a question, because I was in London, and when I was there, there were some Black people there who came up to me, and I thought they came up because they recognized me, because I get stopped on the street when I'm in London, and I don't know if they knew me or not, but I know they were trying to convince me to buy something, and I said, well, what are you trying to get me to buy? Because I had to go. I didn't want to be sold or pitched at that moment, but they were like, oh, we have a new coin. We created a coin. And I was like, oh, okay. Tell me about your coin. So they told me about the coin. They gave me a piece of paper. And so literally they were like, we created a coin that everyone can buy. And what I'm finding is that everybody's creating a coin. Everybody's got a coin. Even the Russians have the crypto ruble now. The IMF, the chief of the International Monetary Fund, they asked her what she thought about cryptocurrency and blockchain, and she feels like it's something that they have to pay attention to, because the International Monetary Fund, what they do is, among other things, is they loan money all around the world to countries that are struggling. And basically, she said we might create our own currency. Everybody's trying to create their own currency. So the question is, what happens at that point? Like, what do you do when you have not just Bitcoin, but 500 or 1,000 other different cryptocurrencies out there? How does that play out? That I don't know. I do not know. I do know that this isn't the first time this kind of thing has existed. Really what's happening with cryptocurrency and the creation of a particular currency that circulates in a certain economy, that's no different from what happens already with, in Japan, you got the yen kind of circulates. If you go to China, it's the renminbi that circulates. I was in London, and they didn't, some people wanted my dollars, most people didn't. They wanted pounds. They had pounds that were circulating. I go to other parts of Europe, the euro's circulating. So, you'll hear there are dollars circulating. So, the idea of creating a currency is nothing new. I think what's new about digital currency is that it's kind of borderless. There are no central banks. It doesn't matter if you're sending money to somebody across the world. The geographic boundaries don't matter as much. So you're able to kind of have these transactions fluidly without somebody taking out a big chunk just because you send money to somebody else, or somebody controlling your money. Like, for example, I know I get irritated because when I move money back and forth between my bank and PayPal, I'll tell PayPal, put this money in my bank account, and they'll immediately take the money out of my account, but I won't see the money in my other account for 2 or 3 days. Now, the thing is that money's still out there. Somebody's using it. Somebody's earning interest from holding my money. I don't like that. The other thing is that with central banks and currency, central banks are able to manipulate the currency. They can create more currency. They can print more money. They can reduce money supply. So what's kind of been happening in the U.S. for a very long time is, since 2008, 2009, when the market crashed, they've been doing what they call quantitative easing, which is where they're basically increasing the money supply. And they do that. And what happens, though, is when they increase the money supply, interest rates drop. So the interest rates have been dropping to almost nothing. That's why you're not getting anything on your savings account. And as a result, though, at the same time, the oversupply of money creates what they call inflation, or asset inflation. So but the difference is, it depends on sort of what sector of the economy they're putting the money into. So, for example, because they've made a lot of money available for companies to invest and for wealthy people to borrow in order to buy stocks and all that, a lot of people believe the stock market is on a big bubble because of quantitative easing. They believe that the stock market has been artificially inflated because there's so much money available, that when there's a lot of money available, everybody's trying to buy these stocks. And as people try to buy more and more of an asset, the price goes up. That's why Bitcoin's price is going up, because people are hearing about it and they're saying, "Oh, let me buy some Bitcoin." How many of you have thought at some point, I had a conversation with somebody where you said, "I think I might try to go buy some Bitcoin"? I got a text message today from my friend who said, "Oh, me and my girlfriend decided that we want to go in together and pool our money and buy some Bitcoin. How do we do that?" Right? Everybody's talking about it. You're not just you. So in a way, the problem with that, though, is that when you look at Bitcoin in that way, and you look at the price sort of going up from this increased demand, it does make it a little bit like a fad, like fashionable jeans or something, or Beats by Dre headphones or something, where it's popular and everybody wants it. The question is, well, what if there comes a day when people don't want it anymore? The other challenge that you have is just regulation. Bitcoin took a big plummet not too long ago when China, they banned all Bitcoin exchanges in their country, and when they did that caused the price of Bitcoin to drop a lot. Now, I just believed Bitcoin. I just felt like, okay, Bitcoin, I think it's still a good investment. So when it dropped, I just kept buying. So I'm actually kind of happy I did that, because I made a lot of money when it came back up. But that doesn't mean that I somehow had magical knowledge that Bitcoin was going to keep going up. You see, what you got to understand about investing is that investing is not about magical knowledge. It's about making sure that you're just in the game. It's like if LeBron James is playing in a basketball game, he doesn't know for sure if he's going to win or lose. But he knows that if he's not in the game, he's definitely going to lose. So a lot of y'all, if you're not investing, you're just not even in the game. And on average, people that invest consistently and invest intelligently and invest patiently and invest in a way that's diversified, they usually end up doing far better than people who don't invest at all. In fact, I'd use this analogy to help you understand this. Imagine if you put, let's say that you were scared to invest and you were worried about losing money. So let's say you took $1,000 and you invested it in stocks, right? And let's say over the next 10 years, something crazy happens and all the stocks that you buy, they don't go up in value, they drop by 20%. So they drop down to $800. Their investment, was worth $1,000, now it's worth $800. Okay, so what does that mean? I want you to think about that for a minute. That means that you put away $1,000 and 10 years later you have $800 to show for it. Now, the problem is that if you put money into, if you take that money and you spend that money instead of investing it, well, that means you spent $1,000 and 10 years later you'll have nothing to show for it. I mean, if I were to add up $1,000 worth of fast food that you bought in the year 2003, what do you have to show for it now? You probably don't even remember ever having that money or ever spending that money. So ultimately, you want to put the bulk of your money in places where you have something to show for it. That's basically all it is. Like I don't invest in certain stocks because I just have a magical understanding of which stocks are going to do well. I invest in a lot of stocks. I own hundreds of different stocks. I can't tell you which ones I own the most of. I can tell you which ones I own a substantial proportion of or whatever, but I don't think of it that way. I think of it as getting in the game. I own percentages in a lot of different businesses. My goal is just to get in the game. So you got to get in the game. And remember, you can get in the game for small amounts of money. Stop thinking that you got to be rich. You ain't got to be rich. So I got some students in here who have a few questions. So I want to answer a few of your questions. So Lewis says, I have several businesses I'd like to start. How do you suggest prioritizing? I would start with one good idea that you really like that doesn't cost a lot of money. Work on that consistently. Join a class or something or a group that's going to help you to A, network for your business, and then B, to get ideas. You don't want to do it by yourself. When you start your business, do not start your business by trying to do everything by yourself. Your first investing group, in my opinion, could be your family. If you got relatives that got some sense, at least a couple, you don't need 10 or 20, you just need like 2. Commit yourselves to having business talks every few days. That's what I call being an economic grown-up. Economic maturity is when you get to the point where you're thinking about grown-up stuff. You're talking about making money like a grown-up, making money in a way that's gonna build something for your family, build your own assets. You can't borrow off the white man's assets forever. You can't live off of other people forever. At some point, you want something of your own, right? Just like when you were a kid and you lived with your parents, you said, I want my own place. I want my own car. I want my own life. Well, the same thing is true when it comes to your economic parents, which is pretty much, white people. I'm just being honest with you. At some point, you got to ask yourself, when am I going to have something on my own? When am I going to have my own place? So, and the thing is, you don't pretend like you can't afford it. Because it's really weird to me when I see people say I can't afford to invest, but you've got the nicest shoes and your hair is perfectly well laid and you've got a really nice car and all that stuff. It doesn't add up. Or when I can have a rap concert with Lil Yachty and the tickets are $150 a piece and there's 50,000 people in the stands. Well, that's 50,000 liars who would probably walk out of there and tell me I can't afford to invest, but you just dropped $150 to go see a rapper who doesn't care anything about you. All right, so Miss Britton's asking, did they give you back your passport? Yes, they did. I did eventually get it back, but it was tough in Britain. In case y'all don't know, I was detained in London over something that was really weird. I've never had that happen before. I'm not a criminal or an international terrorist, but I imagine being black and if impacting black people makes people nervous. So it is what it is. I just have to deal with that. It doesn't scare me. But yeah, they actually literally took my passport until it was time for me to go. And I did finally get it back. So thank you for asking. And I appreciate everybody who was worried about me. Let's see here. Malik, do you have a mutual fund? If so, how can I invest in it? I do not have a mutual fund, Malik. But if you want to invest in a mutual fund, if you go sign up for, say, I know with Acorn, Stash, and Robinhood, those three apps, you're able to get into mutual funds very, very easily. There's also, if you get an E-Trade account, TD Ameritrade, stuff like that, and just look up mutual funds and then look at the different characteristics. Some funds are high risk, some are lower risk, some are small cap stocks, some international stocks. Every mutual fund kind of has its own swag, so to speak, financial swag. That's a good term, right? Anyway, so you want to figure out sort of what the financial swag of that mutual fund is so that you can determine, where it fits with you. Is Acorn still around? Yes, Acorns is still around. I have an Acorns account, and I look at my Acorns account every couple of days. Amanda says, have you had of Potcoin? I don't know what Potcoin is, so I'm sorry. I wish I could tell you. Latoya, after the month is over, will we still have access to the site? Yes, if you sign up at theblackstockmarketprogram.com, you get the first month free. After the first month, though,